Hey y'all, it's Megan from Made for Mermaids, and today we are sewing a Venice Henley. I'm sewing the crop top version here, but the steps are going to be almost the same for all of the versions. The first step is to sew your shoulder seams. So you're going to put the front and the back pieces right sides together and stitch them together at each shoulder seam with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. After you have your shoulder seam sewn, you can kind of set that aside, and we're going to prep our Henley neckband. So you're going to want to add interfacing from the notch edge down on both sides of the neckband. And then we're going to stay stitch around the neckline on the main piece, 1/4 inch from the raw edge. And you just do this a few inches down and across that bottom edge. I've also added a little piece of interfacing on mine because this rib knit doesn't have great recovery, so I didn't want it to lose its shape. You can do this as well if you are worried about your fabric stretching out. Now that we have stay stitched our neckline, we're going to make 2 little snips at the bottom, and these are just going to go diagonally into the corner of what you just stay stitched. So just 2 little 1/4 inch snips, just like that at the bottom corner. Next, I'm going to find the center of the back neckline and then also the center of the neckband piece. You can see the bottom of my neckband has the interfacing, so from the notch down, and then I have pressed the neckband in half widthwise with the wrong sides together, and now I'm just matching those center pieces. So next I'm going to measure a 1/2 inch from the bottom edge of the neckband, and that's where I'm going to start pinning my neckband at the bottom. You want to leave that little 1/2 inch so you can finish the bucket later. From the notch down where you have the interfacing, you are not going to stretch your neckband at all. It's going to be a 1-to-1 ratio. So on each side of the neckband, you're doing the same thing. Make sure you're leaving a 1/2 inch from the little snip down, placing a clip, and then from the notch edge, we are not stretching at all. This is the low neckline option, so I don't have much down there. If you did the higher neck, you'll have a little bit more of a 1-to-1 ratio. Now, the rest of the neckband is going to be stretched, so I'm kind of just finding the centers there and placing pins or clips and making sure you're stretching evenly along the neckband. And then we're going to sew this together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So you can see here the neckband is all pinned on. From the red clips, which is the notch down, again, is not stretched at all, just 1-to-1, and then the yellow clips are stretched. And then again, just stitch with a 1/4 inch seam allowance and then press it with your iron. Now you're going to lay your Henley flat, and you're going to overlap your neckband pieces at the bottom, so just one right on top of the other. And you're going to push the bottom of the neckband back towards the wrong side, just like this. And then you're going to pin that bottom where we snipped to the neckband, and you're going to baste this together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. After you baste the neckband at the bottom, you're going to flip it towards the right side and make sure your placket and neckband look nice and that you're happy with it. If not, pull the basting stitches and try again. Once you're happy with it, you will stitch it with your serger or a zigzag stitch to finish, and then press it really nicely with your iron. You can then top stitch all around the neckband if you'd like. The next step, if you're adding sleeves, is to add those. Just remember, the single notch is the front of the bodice and the double notch is the back of the bodice. After we sew our sleeves on, it's time for the side seams. So you will stitch the front and back together with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. If you are doing the sleeveless option, you would then go ahead and add your armbands after the side seams. And then it's time to hem. So you would hem your sleeves, and if you did the crop top or the top option, you would go ahead and hem the bottom of your top. If you're doing the bodysuit option, then the next step would be to add the elastic along the leg line and then the continuous hook and eye on the bottom. The final step is going to be to add snaps or buttons. So I like to overlap the neckline, and it's going to be where that interfacing was from the notch down, and the neckline kind of curves if you're not sure where it is. I really love this expanding button gauge to help me mark where I want to add my snaps or buttons. So you can do as few or as many as you would like, and if you don't want this to be a functional placket, you can go ahead and just stitch it closed with your sewing machine or cover stitch and just add buttons right on top if you don't want it to be functional. So I'm just using my table press here to add some snaps. You can use a handheld press, or you can add buttonholes and buttons with your sewing machine, whatever you want to do. And that's it. It's all complete. If you make a Venice crop top or bodysuit, we would love to see in our Facebook group, or tag us on Instagram at Made for Mermaids. I love this top. It is super flattering. You can layer it, or you can pair it with a skirt or high-waisted pants. It is super cute. If you have any questions, you can of course leave them down below and I'll try to answer them. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Bye.